Welcome to Circle Back to You podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wilson. Our guest today is Dr. Joan Ford. She's an award-winning leader, researcher, military veteran, international speaker, TEDx speaker, facilitator, consultant, and parent. Ellen draws on her research and practical experiences to drive organizational outcomes such as improved retention, productivity, engagement, well-being, and ultimately profit by enhancing inclusive leadership capabilities and workplace culture. Welcome everybody to Circle Back to You podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wilson. I am proud to have beside me on this show, Dr. Joan Ford. How you doing, Ellen?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you, Jason. It's so exciting to be here with you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to have you. You have had such a stellar career. And I think one of the toughest things for people that are military veterans is to make that transition to corporate life. But I mean, you've been a champion at this and are doing absolutely amazing things in the world.
Oh, thank you. I love what I do, Jason. So I love most things I do.
That's awesome. Okay, so one of the first things I want to ask you is, what was your childhood dream?
Oh, so actually it was to join the army.
Was it?
I remember, I was 10, so just a 10-year-old little girl, and I saw this advertisement on TV, and it was this play on words between army and arm me, and it said things like arm me with friends, arm me with experience, arm me with education, and it listed all these things, and then it ended with army with a future. And at 10 years old, I was like, that's me. That's got everything. That's what I'm going to do. So joining the army was my childhood dream.
Wow. Okay, so at what age did you go into the army?
18. So I finished school, and then I joined up straight from there.
Okay, so tell me about your career in the army.
Yeah, so Jason, I was really lucky. I spent 10 years in the New Zealand Army, and I was very lucky. I did, basically the New Zealand Army sends 2 people to Australia on a scholarship exchange every year, and I was lucky enough to get that. So I actually did all my training, my military training, undergraduate degree on exchange in Australia. So I commissioned as an officer in 2006 and became an engineer officer in the army. So was super lucky. I had I basically led construction soldiers. That was I had construction troops, so I had carpenters, electricians, and plumbers in my troop, and got to lead soldiers both around New Zealand and around the world on construction projects. So it was pretty cool. We'd go in to help nations, say, after a natural disaster. So we did a lot of work in the Pacific Islands. If there was, say, a cyclone go through and, would cause devastation, our team would go in and help with the rebuild. And then also went to do more peacekeeping type operations, or more in, slightly more war-torn countries. So was lucky enough to serve in Afghanistan for 7 months as well, doing, again, construction tasks, both in our Kiwi bases, but also doing stuff in the community. So it was really awesome, Jason. I had just had this amazing 10 years working with incredible people, spending time. I got to spend 2 months in Antarctica doing construction tasks. So that was another kind of incredible experience. And yeah, it was just working with amazing people, working with different cultures, and getting to do what I felt was really meaningful work, helping people both in New Zealand and around the world. So yeah, very lucky 10-year career.
That's wonderful. Okay, so at what point did you lead a team into Afghanistan and basically organize an evacuation to New Zealand?
Oh, so actually they were 2 slightly different tasks. So when I was in the army, I served in Afghanistan for 7 months during 2010 and 11. And when I was serving there, I had in my team, I had Kiwi or New Zealand soldiers, and I also had 15 locals. And we were a team, Jason. So it wasn't like I've got my Kiwi soldiers and we've got some locals that we're using. No, it was like we're a team. And so we worked together almost every day, shared meals, laughed, shared stories. And so when I finished my deployment after 7 months, I was obviously really happy to be coming home. It's a pretty exhausting and austere environment to be on deployment. But what I was, the thing that really touched my heart, Jason, were those locals. And so fast forward 10 years from there, so 10 years after I'd been in Afghanistan, I was well out of the army by that point, doing my whole new mission. And the Taliban took over in Afghanistan. We all saw it around the world, which was 3 years ago, August 2021. Taliban took over. And the thing I was really worried about, Jason, is what was going to happen to those locals who had worked in our team, because basically people that had worked for a foreign defence force were in danger. And it was one of those people that had been in my team 10 years prior, reached out to me, now in New Zealand, now as a not military person anymore, begging me to help them. They were, they'd fled their home in fear of their lives. Please, could I help them? And well, Jason, that escalated into a pretty monumental, overwhelming task that took up the following almost a year of life. But that was, so it was serving in Afghanistan 10 years prior, working with these people, and then 10 years afterwards helping them when they were in need.
Wow. I saw a movie that was pretty much based on the same kind of rescue mission of Afghans that were living there. And I thought it was you being depicted in this movie.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I've had a few people say that they've watched a movie and they were like, that was your story. And I was like, it actually was. And Jason, it wasn't just, it wasn't just me. I was part of a team. But there was this volunteer team. There were 4 of us, including Chris Parsons and Martin Dransfield. And we, as volunteers, basically worked together. We collaborated with our government, which is quite interesting, by the way. Like, you don't usually have a situation where a government department is genuinely collaborating with private volunteer citizens. But they did. It was this, we had support from the media that played a big role in kind of getting, winning the hearts and minds of our people to want to care about the plight of these Afghans. And we had donors that, donated money to fund the evacuation costs. We had our interpreter friends. It became this, pretty incredible mission, actually, with a whole lot of us, feeding into this together. And after basically, it was almost a year, it was about 10 months that this task took, Jason, we had our team, we had New Zealand visas for 563 people, and we managed to get every single one of those 563 people to New Zealand.
Wow. Was this a dangerous mission during the time?
So to be really, not for me, like we, the team, we were all doing this from the comfort of our own home. It was kind of bizarre, Jason. So I wasn't flying into Afghanistan physically getting these people out. This was effectively coordinating the evacuation from New Zealand. So it was kind of bizarre. It was definitely dangerous for the people. So the Afghan families we were helping were in danger. And every time we facilitated a crossing of the border, which was done, over time, it was sort of trickled over so that we didn't kind of bring too much attention to them. So the families were in danger, and that was really, really real to us. But no, it was kind of bizarre, Jason. I was doing it from home, breastfeeding a baby, caring for my 3-year-old, starting my business to change the world, and coordinating as part of a team an evacuation mission.
That's amazing. Okay, this is a great segue point here, because you're really, really passionate about leadership and about changing culture within corporate life. Why are you so passionate about that? And what life lessons or leadership lessons did you learn while you were in the military?
Yeah, sure. So Jason, I'm just passionate about people. I really am. I'm passionate about leadership. How do we create great experiences for people? Because I know that when people feel great at work, they do their best work. Like I care from the heart point of view, but actually it's a commercially smart idea. The better people feel, the happier they are, the better lives they have, and the more money they actually make, their companies. And so my passion for this was I had been a leader in the Army for 10 years. I had then been in leadership roles in the corporate sector. I did my MBA and PhD also on leadership. So got a lot of passion for leadership. And then was at the heart of this volunteer team evacuating people from Afghanistan, which was also, a leadership, involvement. And so basically, Jason, I've learned lessons along the way from all these different experiences. So leading in the Army, leading in the corporate sector, being involved in this evacuation task, the research on leadership. And I kind of sort of bring it all together to share my big lessons. So my leadership model, which is actually in my logo, I think you can see it on my background, is belonging, autonomy, and purpose. So my main takeaway is that I believe that a leader's job is to create an environment where their people can thrive and then direct that thriving energy at the task that needs to be achieved. And in order to thrive, people need three things. They need a sense of belonging. So it's not about adjusting themselves to be what they think is required of them in a certain setting. It's about belonging. And belonging is when you can show up as your whole, full, authentic, unique, diverse, even slightly weird self, and actually feel that you are truly valued and included. When we feel belonging, my goodness me, we do our best work. That's when our creative brain comes out. We do our best. The second thing people need is autonomy. So we don't like to be micromanaged. We like to have a sense of control or agency over how we conduct our tasks, and if possible, when and where. Like, we like to have flexibility. And then the last thing, Jason, we need to thrive is we need purpose. So we need to know that what we do matters. And if we're asked to do a particular task, we need to know the why. Why does that matter? How does that fit in with the team? How does that fit in with the bigger picture? And so they're kind of my three big lessons of leadership, Jason, is belonging, autonomy, and purpose is what people need to thrive.
That's great. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen from some of these employees that you've been coaching within some of these organizations in New Zealand? I mean, I know corporate America, but how is the corporate life in New Zealand, and what are some of the challenges that you've seen?
Yeah, sure. And look, to be fair, I know, New Zealand and America are different countries, but honestly, this stuff is applicable everywhere.
Is it?
Most of my research actually comes out of the States, because the States has, more research because it's got more people than New Zealand does. So, this stuff is not, New Zealand is certainly not really unique in this regard compared to America. But the people that I actually do the work with is typically business leaders. So not so much the individuals. It's I go in and I help business leaders by running workshops on lifting their leadership capabilities. And some of the challenges that I've seen in my work is that leaders, especially since COVID, they know that they need to offer more flexibility. It is the way of the future. Like it or not, I mean, I am absolutely a massive proponent of giving people more flexibility, autonomy. They do their best work that way. So I believe in this passionately. But there's a lot of business leaders who they kind of know this. They know that they need to offer more flexibility, but they don't quite know how to do it. They are so used to leading in an environment where they can see their people. And that's kind of how they've been taught leadership. But actually, leadership is about creating an environment where your people can thrive and then directing that thriving energy at what needs to be achieved. And so I help leaders to kind of lift the belonging, autonomy, purpose capabilities, which some of them struggle with, especially the flexible working. I think that's an area that a lot of business leaders find challenging. But the cool thing is that it's all teachable. And the business leaders who start learning how to lead flexible workers, lead in a more flexible manner, they reap the benefits. They get much better results. So yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a win-win.
Great. So you're a proponent of remote work.
Yeah, and it's not. And so what I'd say is, I'll say flexible work, which can include a whole range of things. Some of it could be remote working. Some of it could be hybrid. Some of it could be being flexible on the timings that you do your work. So it's more about not saying that remote working always works or being in the office always works. It's about getting really clear on what are the outputs required for that team. What are the things that the people in that team care about beyond work? And how can we create some flexibility to deliver those great outputs and do the things that people care about outside of work? And how that looks might be remote working. It might not be, but it's just about being flexible with how we structure things.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, was doing public speaking a challenge for you, or was this something that you did naturally?
So I guess I love talking, Jason. I'm passionate. I laughed to my parents actually, because when I was little, Jason, they would tell me that I would never shut up. I've been a talker my whole life. And so I get to laugh to mum and dad. I'm like, well, I get paid to do it now. So joke's on you guys.
Right.
But yeah, the thing is, actually, Jason, you said, how do I feel about public speaking? I'm not the best, most perfectly polished speaker. I'm not, but I'm really passionate about what I'm talking about. I know the stuff intensely and I'm passionate about it. So any opportunity to share this stuff with people and help people get practical takeaways to actually make an impact and change how we do things, it just excites me. I want to spread this stuff, and talking about it's one of the ways you can do that.
So, there's a difference between doing public speaking like at a company or something like that, and then preparing for a TEDx talk. I mean, there's a whole different kind of preparation for that, and it's challenging. What did you think about that? And what did you think about that whole experience?
Oh, I mean, kind of what I was saying before, like I was just so excited, Jason. Like being on the red circle doing a TEDx talk was kind of one of my dreams. And so I was nervous, don't get me wrong. Before going onto that stage, I was nervous, but I was just excited. I was like, this is my chance to share, the TED premise is ideas worth spreading. And I was like, I believe that this idea around how we lead people, how we give people more flexibility is an idea worth spreading. And so, I prepared a lot before I did my TEDx talk, but I loved it. I was so excited to have this amazing platform to share these ideas.
So what did you do to prepare?
Yeah, I guess I just sort of said my talk out loud over and over again. I remember like walking down the street, I'd be walking the dog, talking out loud, and if people would pass me by and give me a funny look, it's all right. So that was the practicing on the talking. But I think the thing with a TED talk, it's not about the speaking, it's about the idea. And so preparing for the idea has kind of been my whole life. Like I've learned these lessons through my army journey, through my corporate journey, through my research on leadership, this Afghanistan evacuation task. Like all of that was my preparation, which were what gave me the ideas. And so I feel like in many ways it was like a long-term forming the ideas. And then it was just really practicing, well, how do I say them succinctly and convincingly in an 18-minute talk?
So at that experience, I mean, was there a lot of people in the audience or just a few people?
Oh, it wasn't massive. I think maybe 400 people in the audience. So it wasn't, it was a theatre. So, but not, it wasn't a ginormous theatre. The main thing that I was excited about was that it was filmed. So, obviously I got to share the ideas with the people in the room, but the value of the TED talk is having the video to be able to share it with, so many more people.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge thing that you can put on your resume and show people when it comes to getting other speaking engagements. So, did your opportunities for speaking engagements increase tremendously after that?
Oh, well, actually, to be honest, the correlation, not so much. I'd already been doing my speaking business, and the TEDx, the way it happened is it actually took quite a long time until you got the video. It might have been about like more than a year after I'd actually done the event that I got the video to be able to share. Yeah, so I don't know why that was the case, but it just was. So there was sort of a bit of a lag between being able to, do the talk and then share it. So I'm not sure that I could say the business boomed as a result of the TED Talk. I was already doing the speaking business. But I mean, yeah, it definitely adds, it does add credibility to have been a TEDx speaker, and I'm proud to be that.
That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about work school hours movement.
Yeah, so, and thank you. So
Sure.
Jason, I'm excited. I get excited about a lot of things. I'm a very excitable person. So I said that my leadership model was belonging, autonomy, and purpose. And what I found, I did some post-doctoral research about the experiences of working parents. And what I found is that they were not always experiencing belonging. It was kind of like, yeah, you can come to work, but kind of, can you just keep your kids out of it? And, if you've got a sick day because your kids are sick, like that's an inconvenience. It was sort of like you belonged as a worker, but not fully, because being a parent was almost like an inconvenience for workplaces. So they didn't have a full sense of belonging. The autonomy piece was a real challenge for parents. They're trying to pick their kids up from school at 3:00, but their workplace needs them to work until 5:00. They've got to work, say, 48, 49 weeks of the year, but school holidays are almost 2-3 months of the year. So that's really struggling on the autonomy. And the last one, Jason, is the purpose was in conflict. It's like we have this purpose to be a great parent. We have this purpose to be a great worker, and they're constantly competing. So upon realizing that parents were not always experiencing belonging, autonomy, and purpose, I started the #WorkSchoolHours movement. Now, it's not as dogmatic as it sounds. I'm not saying the entire world works 9 till 3. There's always someone, Jason, who likes to tell me that we don't want our hospitals to close in the afternoon. I'm like, I know that. I'm not an idiot. Like, I do realize that. It's about applying the principles where we can. So very briefly, Jason, there's 3 principles of work school hours. The first is we need to do more to value the fact that people have things they care about outside of work. Now, that might be children. That was the genesis of work school hours. Excuse me, and I'm obviously a parent myself. But what I realized is actually everyone has things they care about beyond work. So it might not just be about kids. We've got people who are now in the workforce who are caring for elderly relatives. We've got people who, goodness me, might have a hobby beyond work or be doing study. And so that's the first principle, is value that people have things that they care about beyond work. The second principle of #WorkSchoolHours is to focus more on outputs. So we often get really bogged down in the hours people do. Instead, we should be focusing more on what were the deliverables, what were the outputs, and focus on that instead. And the third principle of #WorkSchoolHours is giving people more flexibility. So it's about helping people to do the great outputs. Not for a second am I suggesting the outputs don't get done, but how do we do those outputs and also attend to the things we care about outside of work and have more flexibility so we can do both. And that is what Work School Hours is all about. And I'm excited. I just launched my book this year on it. All about how do we do it, and how can organizations implement it in a really practical way.
I think that's phenomenal. And, one of the biggest problems that people have is, how do you balance work and life at home and, manage all the stress without taking it out on your kids? That's a huge challenge for people.
Oh, Jason, it is. It's like we live in this world where we are expected to work as if we don't have kids, and then parent as if we don't have a job. And it's kind of this impossible juggle. And the reason we're in this is because the construct of work was designed 100 years ago, when kind of the person who was responsible for looking after the kids was not the same person that was in the workforce. It was kind of like the man was the worker, the woman was the caregiver of children. But that's not our society today, and it has not been for decades. And so we've got this, I think, honestly, if we had a clean slate today, there's no way we would say, yeah, let's put all the adults on one schedule and we'll put the children on a different schedule. Like, that just doesn't doesn't make sense. And so you're right, this kind of balancing work and family it's so challenging, and parents always have guilt. We either feel guilty because we're not being there for our kids' sports days, or we're not there for the afternoon pickup, or we feel guilty to our team and our employer that we're not, there when they might need us. And so my movement of hashtag work school hours it's not about tips and tricks for people to now juggle themselves more. Actually, it's about changing the freaking system. So the system is the issue. And so work school hours is about changing the system so that people can be valued as both workers and as parents. And honestly, Jason, it's commercially smart. Businesses that implement these principles, that they get more out of their people.
Well, have you seen any resistance from companies that you would recommend that take on these values?
Yeah, so look, I'm not going to say, Jackson, that everywhere I go, people just roll over and say, yes, brilliant idea, Ellen, we'll implement it immediately. That would be a bit of an overstatement. But yeah, some of the resistance I get is people sometimes think, well, if we give people more flexibility, they might milk it, or they might take advantage. And what I say is, like, the people that would milk that kind of a system are the people that are milking the current system. You just maybe don't know it. And also, the people that milk it, they're actually a really small portion of the workforce. The absolute majority of people, like, they want to add value. They want to do a good job in their workplace. They want to contribute to their team. There's not that many people who are out there just trying to, do the bare minimum and milk the system. Most of us want to add value. So I think that's one of the kind of challenges or pushbacks I get from businesses, that they're kind of worried that if they give flexibility, maybe people won't get their work done. But what's really cool about the work that I do, whether it's a workshop or delivering a keynote, it's giving them lots of practical examples. I mean, I've worked with so many different industries now, Jason. So professional services, military, construction, farming, engineering, hospitality, healthcare, like a wide range of industries. And I have not yet worked with an organization that hasn't been able to implement these principles in some way. And the way that they get implemented in each organization is different. It's not, we do work school hours this way. It's, okay, how do we apply the principles with this team to make some positive progress for our people and for our organization? And actually, I haven't had a lot of resistance in that area, Jason. I have not yet worked with a business who cannot do anything. So I think that's heartening.
Okay, well, that's great. So you have kids and you're an entrepreneur as well. How do you balance your work life with your kids?
So I mean, Jason, I had to practice what I preach, right? I'm talking about, how do we I'm going to say, like, how do we be a great worker and a great parent? How do we have our cake and eat it? Because what is the point in having cake if you can't eat it? And I'm not saying that I get it right all the time. Of course I'm not. Am I the perfect parent? Of course I'm not. Am I the perfect professional? Of course I'm not. But I have a really great balance, Jason. So my starting point is the kids' timetable. I haven't managed to convince, I haven't changed the school system. And that's not my goal either. But that's kind of my starting point. So my 7-year-old's at school. I've got a 4-year-old who is in daycare 3 days a week. So that's kind of my starting point. And I just do my work around that. So I've got my 4-year-old. He's he's only in daycare 3 days. So I've got him the rest of the week, which I love. I'm there for the majority of the school pickups. If there's a sports day, I attend it. I'm there for the kid and I love it. It fills my cup. It makes me not feel as much mum guilt. I mean, of course, I still get parent guilt. I think every parent gets a little bit of it, but I'm there for the kids, most of the time. And then I just work around that. I don't have this kind of strict, these are my hours of work and these are my hours of parenting. It's just, I'm a person, I've got life, and there's different things I need to attend to. And I just do them kind of in and around life. The other thing I do, Jason, to kind of get that time with the kids is I do travel for work sometimes internationally. So, I might be traveling to deliver a keynote or a workshop. And I'll quite often bring one or both of the kids with me.
Oh, really?
I've done keynotes where one of my boys will just be sitting in the audience. In
Yeah.
other cases, which is kind of cool. I mean, that's not always appropriate. Like if it's an evening event, I'll just find a babysitter. And so, or I'll get a babysitter for the event. I do my work, and then the kids and I, we have an adventure around it. Like the keynote doesn't take the entire trip, so
Right.
I'll bring the kids along, and we'll go to the zoo, or we'll go to a park, so it's kind of fun. Like they get to see that their mum works, which I really like, because I want them to see that their mum's in the workforce, she contributes, and I get to be there for them. So it's I don't think there's any such thing as perfect. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good, Jason. I get to spend a lot of time with my kids, and I get to feel like I'm succeeding and adding value in the professional sector, in the professional sphere.
I think that's great. So when we take a look at social media and the effects or the negative effects that this has had on kids, at what age do you recommend that kids can have a cell phone?
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm not an expert in that area, Jason, so I don't want to overstep my expertise. I mean, my kids are little, they're 7 and 4. They don't have cell phones. So I guess it's hard for me to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would say right now, no, they're not old enough. When will they be? I don't know. I guess I'll sort of I'll learn that as I go and as they grow older. What I have heard though, I feel like my expertise is in the leadership space. I'm not sort of an expert in the parent space, but I have seen some research from experts in the parenting space that say there's a lot of evidence to suggest that if your kids do get a cell phone at some point, make it a what do you call it? Not a smartphone, like a dumb phone, so they don't have the internet in their pocket. Was a piece of advice I heard. So yeah, I don't think I've got a good answer for you on that one, Jason, but I'll just say it's 7 and 4, not yet.
Okay. Well, at what age do you think you would give your child a phone?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, to be honest, I haven't put a lot of thought into that, because it just feels like something in the future. So I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, Jason. Maybe when they get to high school, I'd have to really think about that and see where they're at that point and why I think it would be important or not important. So yeah, sorry, I'm not sure on that one yet.
Yeah, for me, my wife and I, we decided that 15 would be a good age. So my child is 14. He'll be 15 in October. And, right now he has access to my phone or my wife's phone. But we said, no, you cannot have your own phone until you're 15. So I think that's a good age.
Oh,
I think that the
yeah.
child is more responsible at 15. So we're going to try that out and see how it goes.
That's awesome. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, oh gosh, I'm not in the teenage space yet, but yeah.
So we have our Freedom Fight Expo coming up on September the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. You're actually one of our speakers at the event. What would be your topic and what will you talk about?
Oh, so actually it's really that. So I'm talking about PTSD. So actually, quite I suppose some of the more challenging parts. So this talk here has been, well, quite upbeat. I'm excited about life and possibilities. But I talked very briefly about the Afghanistan evacuation task, and
Yeah.
and even though I was not in danger, Jason, I was at home, but the weight on my shoulders of feeling responsible for these families was immense. And so at the end of that task, I experienced some PTSD, and I had never experienced that before. I've actually been to Afghanistan. I've been to war and did not get PTSD. But I did experience it from this evacuation task. And so, yeah, at the Freedom Fight Expo, I'm excited to, well, it's not excited to share the story in a way that brings hope. So I did experience this,
Yes.
and I kind of talk through what that felt like for me, how it looks different for everybody. We often have kind of ideas about what PTSD looks like, and actually it's different for different people. And so I kind of talk through that experience for me and and I suppose on the positive side is, and how I got help to support me through that. So yeah, I think it's cool to be able to contribute to that. It's a really important expo you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, people all over the world are suffering from trauma and at some level, right?
Mm.
Whether it be your experience in the military or probably some childhood trauma, which is something that we talked about today at one of our meetings through Circle of Friends Club on Clubhouse. We have a Clubhouse meeting every Wednesday and Thursday now. So we talk about some phenomenal topics when it comes to mental health, and
Oh,
trauma is one of those things that affect. It doesn't matter who it is. If you
yeah.
currently aren't dealing with something like that or have dealt with it, you probably 9 times out of 10 you know someone who has. So that's why this event for PTSD and suicide prevention is so important.
Yeah, Jason, it is important. And actually, Jason, would it be okay if I just because I totally support the work that you're doing. Another thing, which is actually we were kind of a little bit connected through this, Jason, is there's a book series, an anthology series called Rattled Awake, and they have just done
Yes.
their 11th series, which is called the Mental Health Edition. Now, I'm really
Yes.
chuffed. I actually contributed a chapter to this. So I did a chapter. So I've got my full #WorkSchoolHours book, which is like my book on my website. But I did like a summarized version, a chapter of it in this Rattled Awake book. So that was kind of more about mental health for parents. But the book's got chapters from, I don't know, 10-ish other people who share some really inspiring stories of dealing with some pretty dark times. So I think it would be a great resource for the people that are attending your expo, Jason. It's the Rattled Awake Volume 11. It's on Amazon, and there's some inspiring stories of people that have, got very close to achieving suicide, have lived to get through it, and share some important messages. So just, really support what you're doing, Jason. It's so important, especially, I think it's Suicide Awareness Month, I believe.
Yes.
It's so important. So just thank you, Jason, for leading this.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Lonnie. I was actually in her Rattled Awake series as well. My particular chapter was on dream interpretation and my experience with a dream that actually saved my mom's life. So I had that
Wow.
experience. It was a wonderful experience with Lonnie, and I would recommend it to anybody.
Oh, yay, Jason. I actually didn't realize you'd done a chapter with her already. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
yeah, I agree. The journey with Lonnie was amazing, and connecting with the other co-authors, and yeah, it's cool. It's really her premise is what rattled you and you came out of it better, not bitter. And I love that. So it's challenging stuff, but hey, actually there's hope, and this is the positive that came out of it. So I'm gonna read your
Yeah.
chapter now, Jason. That's cool.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Ellen, it's been so great to have you on the show. What's your website? How can people find you?
Oh, sure. So hopefully you can see it on my virtual background. So it's my name. So ellenjoanford.com. And on there, I've got specifically a #WorkSchoolHours tab, and that's got the TED Talk. It's got a whole lot of publications that are free. There's lots of free resources on there, as well as you can get the book and the online course. But yeah, there's just heaps of stuff on there about leadership. There's videos, and I thank you for asking. Yeah, I'd love you to check it out. ellenjoanford.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show, Ellen. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next same time. Have a great evening. Take care.
Thank you so much, Jason. And thanks everyone else as well.
You're welcome. Take care.